this? Okay, we are live, officially streaming. This is a new day, a new dawn. We once again have my good pal Larry here.
So good. So really, thank you so much for
Always
having
a
me
pleasure.
back. I wasn't sure after you saw all the links and all the strangeness that I sent, but everything fact checks.
And the great thing about it, or bittersweet, I should say, is you left me with way more questions than answers. So I'm hoping that today, some of those questions we can
Well,
get sorted
remember,
out.
you do get the answers, but the
Yes.
answers only lead to more questions.
It's the flag that you've been waving, flavor you've been craving. It's the oopsall Raisins show. Well, now I'm hungry. That's how they get you, man.
Yeah.
That's how they get you.
That's it's how I want to live my life. Really, I just want to live my life, just continuing. I've
Yeah.
enjoyed asking the questions more than getting the answers.
It really gives you a reason to keep going, I suppose. Like you have just the endless search for knowledge.
Yeah, it's an endless search for knowledge. With once you accept that the answer is not the important thing,
Yeah.
but kind of a gateway to the next level.
It's the friends you make along the way.
Which is
No, not really. Fuck those guys.
But I mean, in the Kabbalion, that book that I was telling you about, that was written written so long ago and has influenced every religion.
Yeah.
The Kabbalah, like the before, and I sent you the link. I don't know if I sent you the link for the rabbi who explains Kabbalah in a really.
I don't think so. I didn't see it immediately.
I'll send that because
Okay.
that's a lot of people misunderstand what the Kabbalah is, and a lot of people make up shit of what the Kabbalah
Yeah,
is.
it's like does it have like numerology?
There is numerology involved, and the
It's
movie
like
Pi.
yeah, it's like a Kabbalah is like Jewish mysticism. Is
It's
that the
Jewish mysticism before the Bible was combined, actually,
mm,
and the books are used to not understand the text, but to understand what's beneath the text.
mm,
It's not it's the secret knowledge
okay.
that of trying to find the divine it's back to the trash stratum, in the trash, in the garbage heaps. What is it about? And I when I was coming of age in the East Village, so I graduated from college, as I talked about, and how I
Hmm.
was working for Time Inc. And I was going to punk shows. There were 3, 4 shows a night, and I'm also selling books on the street, and I have book vendors, and
Yeah.
I'm spending a lot of time in dive bars.
Hey, I like dive bars.
I love dive bars, and where, and I don't think young people appreciate what it was like in terms of going to a bar where you're talking to old men. But
Yeah.
they have the stories. Talk about the stories that they have. There's great stories that come out of, there's Bukowski wasn't the only guy.
Mm,
I love Charles Bukowski. Do you know his writing?
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and there are many Bukowski guys out there, and for I probably could go to a bar and be the old man Bukowski now myself.
I don't know if you drink enough.
I don't know if I drink enough either.
Maybe maybe a little too kind. Maybe a little less like
Yeah,
fighty.
yeah,
One of my favorite movies is actually Barfly with Mickey Rourke.
yeah.
If you've seen it.
Oh yeah, Not only that, Rachel actually worked on that film.
No shit.
Yeah, she was working in the same. I didn't say she should worked on that film. She was working in the same studio where that guy, that director, had his office.
Okay.
I shouldn't have said that, but I don't want to. There's one thing that I don't want to do is be fact checked wrong by Rachel.
Okay. Yeah, that's the ultimate fact check.
Yeah. Do not. So that's why I try as best
Okay.
as I can.
Well, we can send this to her.
I've spent a lifetime actually of fact checking myself to see what is real and what is not real, because I've had so many unusual experiences that every now and then I gotta fact check myself.
Okay. So I'm thinking that we did have the last episode. So I was thinking, just as a little intro, if you want to just do a quick little intro, maybe a little bit of a recap of what we talked about last time, and then just lead into the big reveal.
The big reveal is
what could it be?
Is well, maybe start the music, because it's going to sound cuckoo, and it's cuckoo clocks going. Okay. So
I like the sound of that. We like some ambiance. So this is another Faculty X track.
Yeah, this is from Dolly World.
Yeah. This is a title track.
Yeah.
I think it works. All right, so what's the monologue? The cuckoo clock monologue.
The cuckoo clock monologue is what I'm about to tell you is going to sound really strange.
Okay.
And that I was when I was selling books on the street, and I had vendors. Ingo Swann, who's very famous, and people can look him up. If you need, at any point during the show, there, maybe you can put up some of the links right here, so it's, so they can just see what I'm talking about. They can stop the show. They can see that there's a lot of things that are out there in this world that are real, that is hard to believe. Mm-hmm. Reality, there's realer than real, and a lot of things are hard to believe because of the main thing from the last episode that I really want to drag into this episode is the little elephant who is is tied with a little string to a little tree when he's a baby elephant, and he pulls on that string 100 times and he can't get away. Mm-hmm. And then his leg hurts, and then the next day he maybe pulls on it 50 times and he can't get away, and then he eventually stops. Mm-hmm. After 3 or 4 months, he just stops pulling on it, and he grows into this enormous elephant that can lift 800 pounds and move trees, rooted trees, and yet when he comes home, he's still tied to that little string and that little tree, because he now doesn't believe that he can get away from that tree. Mm-hmm. That little tree is magical to him, and it has a particular force that he cannot get over, that he can break away from.
Yeah,
and that's important, because the things that I'm going to reveal today are going to seem unbelievable, but you can fact check everything. And one is that Ingo Swann, who was a remote viewer, one of the top remote viewers, and I got to meet them all, and they liked my energy. They came to my book stall because they were able to. They were looking for recruiters in their mind, and my energy level resonated with them. And so they came to speak to me, and I thought they were just crazy at first. They wanted me to be a recruiter for remote viewers. They said, on your table, have this out there, American Student Travel Center.
Interesting.
And I'd be selling my books, and then every word here becomes another word. you can unscrabble it to find out what the secret code was, and we'll reveal it. We won't reveal it today at all.
Okay.
We'll reveal it down the line.
Okay.
And so I had the tables now, and I had multiple tables with multiple, I had Howie Pyro and Whitey from the Stiffs came over to me, and he had pancake makeup on and a little pork pie hat, and he wore vintage clothing, from the 20s, and he said, I'd like to work for you. And I said, okay, who's your favorite author? And he said, David Goodis. And at the time, David Goodis was my favorite author. So
okay. Write that
David,
down.
And that's actually David Goodis, Jim Thompson. Let me see that today, just so they could.
I actually did want to ask you.
Yeah.
So I know that we of course have talked about your vast knowledge of science fiction in particular. Yeah. So my question to you is: before being approached by these group of remote viewers, did you have, or were you at all interested in those sorts of things? Like, had you read about remote viewing or anything similar?
No, not really. I didn't. I knew remote viewing.
Or like
from Colin Wilson's book, The Occult. I knew that there were what they knew about me by the time they got to me was that I had they asked me, have you read books on the occult, and and I said, I read maybe like 50 books or something. 50 bucks? I was like, okay. That's more than most people.
I've dabbled. I've scratched the surface.
Yeah. So I was like, I'm selling it, and if I'm selling it, I should know a little bit about it. And I knew that there was just, the East Village was filled with all kinds of people. I had, there's all this esoteric stuff out there. I Ching and tarot card reading, and I knew that I understood that there was something about it all that meant something, and that it was real, and that there were magicians, regular magicians, who were mind readers and stuff, who would have these moments where they were like, they understood that it was real, and so I understood that there were. I didn't understand that the CIA was involved, and there was supplying money, and that there was a recruiting center, and now that I was going to be a recruiter and get like $1,000 a week to recruit people, with if someone was did very well, that I would get bonuses and stuff like that. Okay. And I don't think they ever wanted me. They preferred me as a recruiter than to be, they didn't really want me reading people. I don't know why. The meetings were all held. There's and I have links to, like, there's cemeteries that are underground, and there's all these different places that are hidden underground. There's a river underneath the city.
Okay.
And I would have to meet, they would show me the tunnel to go down the passageway, because they were afraid that there are other people who are also reading people's minds, and they were tracking Ingo Swann, Joe McGonigal. All these guys were being traced also to try to interfere with their minds, to find out where they were, what they were doing.
Okay.
There's Russia was ahead of the curve.
Okay.
Russia was very much ahead of the curve in this area. They had been working for, like, they didn't have a problem with this other reality. I don't know why they didn't have a problem with it, but they did not. They were more esoteric minded than the American mind. The American mind was stuck and maybe this is where, if I could just go back to
Well, Russia has probably a very rich history, or I'm thinking like Baba Yaga, and like that very rich
yeah,
history of.
just to go back to Mark Fisher for a minute, and his other book. Now, this is the Weird and the Eerie.
Yeah.
And the reason why I brought up the Weird and the Eerie last time was because I wanted to separate that there's weird things that happen and eerie things that happen, but
Weary.
weary. But then there's creepy, and
Okay.
the American mentality within capitalism, and Mark Fisher wrote about capitalist realism, and what he was trying to say about capitalism is that there's nothing else. There is no communism anymore. There's all these things that people are led to believe exist
Mm-hmm.
that do not exist anymore. It's like Antifa. There's no such fucking thing ever as Antifa. Antifa just meant anti-fascist.
Mm-hmm.
If you saw people who looked like Nazis and were saluting, were Heil Hitler and all that, you call the cops. You were Antifa. So there's like Antifa. There really are no communists anymore. And if you could find the communist who's read Marx or Engels, I'd be surprised.
Mm-hmm.
Marx or Engels, I believe that Marx and Engels would not read themselves anymore. They would like just throw it out and just say no.
Mm-hmm.
Capitalism really has just kind of been the dominating force,
Yeah.
but there's different levels of capitalism and how much. I'm a capitalist. I have to make money. I have to pay my rent. Everybody has to do that now. Everybody in the whole world has to be involved with capitalism. And one of the things that Mark Fisher said is that getting rid of capitalism is a harder belief than understanding what the end of the world looks like. Like, people would rather think about what the end of the world looks like than think of what the end of capitalism looks like.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's part of this elephant, the elephant that's on that chain, that we just have to break this idea. So now we live in this world where there's these ideologies that don't exist, like communism and Antifa, and when now the black magicians, the people who are using these powers for their own gain,
Mm-hmm.
are talking about this stuff, they can also make it go away because it never existed. So they can do all this stuff with Doge and all this, and then just pretend that things are better because it was never bad in the first place. Like these cuts to Department of Education, or cuts to who cuts the IRS right before taxes.
Yeah.
It just if you just step back for a minute, you would see you're a fucking elephant attached to a little tree, because it just doesn't make any sense. If you're of all the things to cut, why would you cut the IRS? The IRS hasn't had new employees in like 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
The population has doubled. What are you talking about? So there are all these people in a trance now, and this trance is involved with I don't know how to say it except that, I've sent you documentation, the penetrators from outer space, and how they have infiltrated into the minds of people who work in the CIA, and and the Russians certainly are involved, and there's a conflict between letting the secret knowledge of the world be more open to everyone,
Mm-hmm.
or trying to keep that secret and pretending that everything is a status quo of we're still fighting communists, but we don't know what it is, and there are none that we could point to, or Antifa, even though there's tons of fascists now in government. Now you're talking about, I mean, January 6th was really Antifa, and people believe it. How are these old white people who are now they're saying, when there's a meeting for when Republicans are going on the road and talking to people to their districts and stuff, it's Antifa hide. So what? Now leftists are hiding as old white people in these Midwest cities? No,
Yeah.
it's all a cover up. It's all we're all being blinded. We
Hmm.
all have Brillo on our eyes, and what they don't want, what they don't like, is these that there are these books and this knowledge that's esoteric,
Yeah.
that's open to anyone. You can become a viewer yourself. You can see, you can learn how to see the future.
Hmm.
I don't make any money on it. It's just
So let's. So I think that's a kind of a heavy thing. We kind of dove both feet into the topic at
yeah,
hand. So I just want to pump the brakes a little bit.
yeah.
And
I told you how my father taught me how to swim, right? He
yeah,
just threw me in the lake.
yeah.
So
Well,
I'm throwing you fuckers in the lake right
for
now.
our viewers at home, for our viewers at home. So you are saying that in back in the day, what, the 70s?
The
Are you saying
80s,
80s?
83.
You were approached by Ingo Swann is his name? Is his
Yes,
name?
Ingo Swann.
Uh
He's a visionary artist, by the way.
Visionary artist Ingo Swann, and he told you that he was a remote reviewer who worked for the government,
Correct.
and that he was going to teach you. Like, how did you guys meet? Tell me the story of how you guys
He just saw the light. He saw the light in me. He actually
the
fucking saw.
shining,
He saw I was fucking shining
the shining.
because of my background and because of how I was talking to people.
Yeah.
And he saw that I was able to read people correctly.
Mhm.
And even though I thought he was a crackpot at first, I still was willing to follow him to a cemetery in the East Village that was underground to have a conversation with him. So, and I'm not a naive person. So.
Yes, yeah.
Not many people,
He
and I
had
just
candy, some sody pops.
yeah. And you know, and like the next meeting was underground that I had to go down a subway tunnel
Oh. Uh-huh.
to find a fucking river that's been there forever that has been flowing underneath. You have the link for it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that shows where the river runs. That there's an actual river, not a sewer.
Wow.
That was the only that there were certain places that they could only talk to me about because they were fearful that their minds were being read.
Mm-hmm.
You can spot other remote viewers.
Mm.
Remote viewers can look for other remote viewers.
Really?
They've been attacked. McGonagall, his life has been. They try to poison him.
Mm-hmm.
So these guys, because McGonagall is actually, and I only met him a couple of times. McGonagall is the number one psychic in the world.
Okay.
The number one psychic in the world. You know, and these guys who went to Stanford. It started in the 60s. Stanford University had a program there for the CIA about these remote viewers, and they were just showing, and they mostly hired physicists. Now, why would you hire physicists to do remote viewing? Why would you hire quantum mechanic physicists for remote viewing?
They think outside of the box.
They fucking think outside of the box. They have to.
Yeah.
They have to think in order
Mm-hmm.
to understand what is going on with physics now. Once it got down to the atomic level and below with these multidimensional worlds and all these concepts,
Yeah.
that they were the ones to be trusted the most from the government. I mean, this was Pentagon people saying, "Where is the submarine?" And McGonagall was like the submarine. You know, actually, it was like they gave him a location. What happened? What remote viewing is?
Yeah. Give us the nitty gritty.
The nitty gritty is, and it's like super crazy.
Okay.
In an envelope, there's a number on it. Like let's say you got Eiffel Tower. They put a photo of the Eiffel Tower in it, and they give it a number,
Mm-hmm.
and they hand you the envelope, and they say, where is it? And McGonagall, he sits and he thinks about it, and he's drawing on a piece of paper, just like you have a piece of paper in your hand,
Mm-hmm.
and he starts drawing it to see what it is, and then he gives the location, southwest, the coordinates.
Like number coordinates?
Number fucking coordinates. McGonagall was military dude. He was a serious fucking military guy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why they really actually want. It's very interesting because, and I think maybe this was the problem with me of why they didn't want me to do remote viewing, is they were fearful of my imagination. Because your imagination, you're talking, remote viewing is about intuition.
Okay.
Not about imagination. It's not about creating where you think it is. You have to. It's a. Can you tell the difference between between an intuition and your imagination?
I've never thought about it before. I don't know if I could.
You can. Now that I've told you, you're going to start to recognize the difference between something just comes to you out of nowhere.
Okay.
That's your intuition.
Mm.
Imagination is when you take it a step further. And this is actually what I want to talk about for just a moment.
Okay.
Think about what it was like to live in a cave for people. You're living in a cave, right? Mm-hmm. And you got to have someone guarding the cave, right? Mm-hmm. And they're guarding the cave. And what are they guarding the cave from? From lions or any creatures that are going to come in, right? So you're sitting outside the cave all night, and the wind is blowing. But is it the wind blowing in the bushes, or is it a lion in the bushes? Now, if it's windy, how are you going to tell the difference between whether or not it's a lion, or if it's just the wind? How can you tell? If the birds are singing, it's not a lion, because think of every movie you've ever seen, when any Tarzan movie or anything, when the jungle is silent, something's up. Right. If the wind is blowing, the birds are singing. So there's other clues that I'm sure intuitively these guys were actually using their secret knowledge. The birds are singing. I can relax and just look at the stars and, maybe take pebbles and make pebbles in the sand, and they're following, what are you doing all night long when you feel free to think? Mm-hmm. Could be creative, maybe you're drawing in the sand, or you could be an astronomer. Maybe you have more of an astronomer base, and you're putting the moon was here and now it's here, and so every night you're the guard. You're the night guard, and you don't even want a daytime job anymore. You don't want to go hunting. You're the fucking astronomer because you like it, and you don't care. You're not afraid of lions because you're prepared. If the birds go silent, you're fucking ready, right? Yeah. Kill or be killed, right? And so you had all these people historically learning to trust intuition and learning also their and not letting their imagination get away with them. They're not in fear. Like we are now all in fear. Many people are in fear. They're not letting their intuitive senses run their life. They're mistrusting, and that's purposely done.
Yeah, it's a trauma-based conditioning.
Trauma-based conditioning. Yeah, and the people who are in charge of controlling, power, right? Let's talk about power for a minute. Okay. We have been taught. What's something that we've been taught about power? What's a concept that we've
that absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Okay. Perfect. That's exactly the example I was going to. And you know who promotes that?
Who?
The people who have corrupt power want that fucking knowledge because they are looking for to teach that They want that fucking elephant tied to that little tree, so they teach that because they don't want you to know that you have fucking powers that you can use to actually free everyone and yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So power doesn't corrupt absolutely. It's only those people who want that and who believe that and who become that are actually promoting that.
Okay.
And that's the opposite of what Ingo Swann and what these guys who were working for the government, and they were working for the government to find submarine. So McGonagall, they give him the coordinates of a place, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they say he says it's a submarine. It's an atomic submarine. And they say, it's not a fucking submarine. There's not even any water there. And he said, oh yeah, motherfucker? Oh yeah? He gave the date that it would be released. I mean, this guy had psychic abilities. Joe McGonagall. I sent you a link.
Yeah, I started to watch it.
He's amazing. The guy's fucking amazing. And there's the proof, and there's the CIA documentation that was released that I sent you. The guy was a fucking amazing psychic. He wrote back to this general who said, no, it can't be, and said he gave him the day that it was going to be released. And then when they said, no, we're not doing that, he wrote back to him and he said, go to that place and see what they did. And they built a canal to the fucking water from that place. The Russians built this canal from where the submarine was after it was done, and built a canal so that it would go into the water.
No shit.
No fucking shit. And you know what that became? That became that movie Red Dawn? Is it Red Dawn? What's the movie about the submarine? I never saw it, but I know they made a movie.
Like U-571, Das Boot.
No, Das Boot's great.
It could be Red Dawn.
I'm not Red. I don't know. There's some movie about a fucking submarine. Any of you psychics out there, transmit it to me right now.
If you're tuning in from the future,
you're tuning in.
Please help us out now.
Yeah, help us in the past.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he was spot on. So you had these guys, patriotic Americans. They knew I was one as well, and they trusted me to recruit for the good of mankind. Now, there are other people who were recruiting for nefarious reasons. And it wasn't just from the government, as it turns out. And this is the reveal. It's a tough one. Okay. But there were, and Ingo Swann wrote the book called Penetration. So maybe now put up I sent you the link before, so put up the Penetration book, and
okay.
There are fucking aliens. There just are, and we know there are.
We know that, yeah.
We know it, but it's hard when you have direct contact with someone who's seen it, and then unfortunately, I got to meet them as well. They were curious about me. They couldn't quite read me. Maybe that's why. I feel safe talking about this now. I don't really have any problems or worries for my own life.
Yeah.
Although if something happens between now and the release of this,
yeah, I was gonna say you might want to put out a statement. It was the penetrators.
It was the penetrators.
It was the penetrators all along.
There's the penetrators, and the penetrators just come from another planet, and they take over planets by feeding insane ideas to people, like greediness and every man for himself, and all these ideas that are inherent with man from those days of being fearful. Like, why was that guard at the cave chosen? Why?
They're observant.
He was trusted.
They could stay up. Yeah.
He was intuitively knowledgeable of when there was something real to be scared of. They woke up in the morning. They came out to the cave. Anything happened? Yeah, this motherfucker tried to get in, and I fucking killed it because I know the difference between the wind and a lion intuitively.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe they asked him, how do you know intuitively? And he fucking told them the truth. I heard the bird stop singing. I knew it was a fucking animal there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's that
was,
simple. Secret
back.
knowledge is that simple. It's all simple. Secret knowledge is there for anyone. Anyone can become a remote viewer.
Mm-hmm.
When you put the links up, I want everyone to become a remote viewer. Everyone has psychic abilities. It's not a big fucking deal. Get over it. Get over thinking that being a psychic is a big deal. It's not. And everyone has this moment of like, I had a feeling. Everybody knows
that gut feeling.
a gut feeling. I've had 2 bleeding ulcers. And I think on purpose. My grandfather had a bleeding ulcer. My mother had a bleeding ulcer.
Mm-hmm.
I have a bleeding ulcer. And it was, you fucking pay attention right now. Your gut is hurting for a real fucking reason.
Mm-hmm.
There's something wrong going on. Trump becomes president, I get a bleeding ulcer. And then I have another one a couple years later.
What a coincidence.
Yeah.
So did you get the second one? Did you get them before he was elected?
No.
Or like after he was elected?
Yeah, after he was elected. Both of them. And it was all about, for me, what happened was, and you could pull this up too, because it's a really good footage.
Okay.
The DOJ went to the courts and asked the judge not to give toothpaste and soap for the children who were being separated from their parents.
I feel like I remember hearing about that.
And I heard that, and remember how I told you my grandfather said that you are in a fucked up situation, and he never said much to me. You know, he taught me how to hunt, he taught me all these things, but he taught me intuitively a lot of things. But this he said out loud. He said, when they're going to separate the children from their parents, you are dealing with bad people who are traumatized. He didn't say the traumatizing of the kids that are going to be ruined for life, but he knew that would happen.
Yeah.
And so that was the moment when he decided to take his family in a boat in the middle of the night and have them go hide in a fucking grave that he dug in a barn in the middle of the night, because he knew that trauma that he was doing to that then was not going to be as big as them being in a concentration camp and killed.
Yeah. Yeah.
My family is the only family from this town outside of Vilnius that survived with 3 of the kids. Mm-hmm. He tried talking to the other people. He was talking to the richest man in town, and he told him what he knew from listening to shortwave radio and how he had to figure out a plan, save money, find the hiding place. And the guy said, I'll just buy off the Nazis. Just money will take care of it, blah, blah, blah. They made him dig, and they took this motherfucker in the middle of town. They made him dig his own grave. They made him jump in the hole, and the first shovelful went into his mouth wide open. Okay? Now, you hear these lessons from my family, and then you understand that you cannot risk the possibility of just being a little elephant still tied to the tree. I spent my whole life looking to see what is going on in my life to make sure that I would make rational and maybe seemingly irrational decisions
mm-hmm.
to other people.
Mm-hmm.
And so when Ingo Swan comes to me and says, follow me to the cemetery, and I'm going to show you the basement where our office is, because that's where it's safe.
Mm-hmm.
I went.
Okay.
Normally I don't go, but I knew that this guy was telling the truth. Lucky.
Yeah.
Lucky.
What were your initial impressions of him? Like, what was he like as a person?
He was a true. He had a ego. You
Yeah.
know, these guys, can you imagine? You're a fucking
Okay.
remote
Yeah.
viewer who can see the future and see where things are that nobody else seems to know or has a game plan. He
Yeah.
trusted his intuition to be able to tell where things are, and then was training people to do that. And so, and then, it's not like he showed me, they showed, how to sign things, and had to be quiet about it. It's
Yeah.
only now, because things were released, that I can talk about it.
Okay. Yeah, I would love to hear what your training was like. If you could give us a crash course of like what you kind of had to
The
go
the,
through.
the training is I mean, it is the same training that I had throughout every traumatic thing. Like, I'm walking down the street as a kid. Are these kids a problem, or can I walk by and feel safe?
Mm.
And I don't know if I'm seeing whether it's just the wind blowing or if they're lions. But from a very young age, I was that guy outside the cave looking to see if this is a safe way to walk. So just the terror of being a kid and being with people who were like these motherfucking rabbis who were mistreating me.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's the kind rabbi who, so you intuitively learn people's energy.
Mm-hmm.
People give off energies, and you have to be able to look. It's like a tarot card reader. Now there's someone walks into your place, and you could see them fidgety and nervous, and you have a certain read on them physically. But then there's the intuition that kicks in too, and that's it. There's an intuition. He recognized my intuition, and really all it was about was like introducing me to people, and then coming to me, trust them or not trust them. And I was always right. Whether you could, he knew already whether I would be right or wrong,
Mm.
as I was meeting other people who were, you trust him or not? I don't trust this guy. He was very nice to you, very nice. I'm going to take off
Okay. Maybe too
my jacket. Not
nice.
even, just people are psycho, and they can really just say shit. And,
Yeah.
who knows?
Make yourself.
I'm reading. I have one of my favorite writers and one of my biggest influences.
Yeah.
And I'll just actually, just for diverge, I brought a couple of books.
Okay.
This is it's called California Sorcery, and it's about all the writers
Oh.
from the Twilight Zone. And they were, and in fact, just Charles Beaumont, and just really great writers who wrote for Serling. He hired really great imaginative thinkers,
Mm-hmm.
and they understood secret knowledge. And let me just tell you about Rod Serling for a minute. He
Okay.
was someone who was writing at the time American Playhouse, or CBS had a show called Playhouse or something like that. And it wasn't like television writers, it was playwrights. It was real writers, not writing bullshit stories, writing from their imagination and something truthful. And he wrote this one story about an African American, and there's a problem and racism, and they said no.
Mm. Mm.
And he said, "What the fuck? How am I going to tell this story?" And then he understood that you could tell the story if it was a green guy and it was from another planet. Then all of a sudden you can tell the story. And if you think about it, every Twilight Zone has that aspect associated with it.
Yeah.
There's this story that surface about aliens, or about whatever uh, idiosyncratic elements are, and then there's the underlying meaning. Like there's the episode of the woman who is who everyone thinks is ugly, but she's actually by today's standards would be considered beautiful, and everybody else is ugly, and they want to give her plastic surgery.
Hmm.
Do you remember?
Yeah.
Are you a
Yeah, I've seen
Twilight
that.
Zone fan?
I am.
I go to the Twilight Zone convention every year. Hi, hey guys, hello everybody.
Yeah, I was gonna. I might. We might have to go too because
Oh, it's
I love.
great.
I love Twilight Zone.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was gonna ask you, is that your favorite episode, or do you have a specific favorite
I
episode?
think that might be Rachel's favorite episode because she has a painting that she bought of that nurse,
Yeah.
the ugly nurse.
Yeah. I can picture her in my
Yeah,
head.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I can't. There's. I don't want to. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole of what my favorite
Okay.
Twilight Zone episode is because then it'll be 5 hours later and I still won't
Yeah,
have
I mean,
decided.
just say all of
But
them.
the
Yeah.
writers themselves and their stories are something that I read a lot of. You
Yeah,
know,
I've only heard of Bradbury. I
yeah,
haven't
Ray
heard.
Bradbury, and he had a fight with Rod Serling. Yeah, there's. I think I brought up Beaumont book here too.
Do,
Anyway, we'll find
do you know who wrote the episode with the guy with the glasses in the end of the world?
Oh yeah, yeah. That is a great one. Talking about books, right?
Yeah.
You know what? I don't know if that was Beaumont or not. But I'll get that answer because I'm going to be sending this episode to the Rod Serling Foundation, and you're
Yeah.
going to get 100 answers.
All right, Rod
and
Serlingites.
any questions that you have, don't ask me because I'm the Rod Serling fan who doesn't know the details about the episodes. I know about the writers, and
Mm,
like that was the thing for me even as a kid,
mm-hmm.
to that I got the Twilight Zone, the stories as seen in the Twilight Zone, the original stories. I was that kid, at like 10
Mm-hmm.
years old. There was a comic book. I was not really a comic book fan
Mm-hmm.
for DC or Marvel. I was buying Twilight Zone and weird stories and
Okay.
that kind of stuff.
Tales from the Crypt.
Tales from the Crypt. That's me. Totally, to,
Solid. Solid.
totally all about horror and monsters. Look at my fucking life and my beginning, and to grow up. And it's not like I knew the story of my family too. So
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in a world where you're an outsider to your family, and they have secret codes and messages that they're telling each other.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. So on Passover, let's say,
Mm-hmm.
my aunt, who was born here in 50, Minnie, she would invite someone to a Passover dinner. Which Passover dinners suck to begin with. So it's like a long ceremony and blah, blah, blah. And then people are finally eating. And at the end of the meal, everybody seemingly is finished, right?
Okay.
All the meat is gone off of the bones.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy puts down his fork, and then he's watching for another half hour how all the members of my family are eating the bone marrow out of the bones, and that's coming from when they were in the hole and they didn't have food, and so everyone's sucking on bone marrow for an extra half hour. And this poor fucking guy is like, what the fuck is going on here?
Are they really that hungry?
Am I supposed to eat the bone marrow too? Cracking the bones, getting in there, getting a little fork,
Yeah.
getting a toothpick to get all the bone marrow out.
Solid. Solid. I mean, you did what you had to do, I suppose. It makes
Yeah,
sense.
and it was just from something that they just continued with.
Yeah.
And so really, that is and so what and so back to just Mark Fisher for a minute. So and capitalist realism
Mm-hmm.
is that there is it's hard to think of esoteric ideas, and if you're so focused on now you thinking that you need to just focus on making money. It's a great distraction.
Yeah.
And then what happens is people have all this money, and in the old days, what did these old fuckers do with all their money? Morgan and all these rich guys.
Um, I don't know. By property? By open business?
No, they museums,
Oh, yeah.
universities. They actually fucking use their money for a useful purpose.
That's so
They
true.
wanted people to actually be more educated,
Mm-hmm.
not dumber. This concept of being dumber is the stupidest fucking thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a manipulation.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, in the old days, the rich guys who were like, I feel like shit. I don't want to feel like shit. I'm gonna have an endowment. I'm actually gonna do something good because this money, this pile of money right now, just feels like shit.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a pile of shit there. Can't do anything with it. There's too much for me to do. What am I gonna do with it? And but yet now, and this is where the penetrators come in, because the penetrators would every now and then I'd have someone come to my table, start barking at me about the kinds of stuff that I was selling, claim that I was a witch. By the way, I've got a great book on witches. Check this out. This is fantastic.
Nice. I like a witch as much as the next guy.
Oh my god, what am I doing?
I feel like we're honestly seeing a resurgence of witchcraft in
Well, yeah.
popular media.
Oh my god, where's this book on witches? You see it? No. Oh my god, here it is. It's
Okay.
underneath. Oh my god, look, it's underneath here. The truth about witchcraft today. Look at her.
She just looks like a normal person.
80s, just
Yeah, she's like an 80s working girl. Okay, so the truth about witchcraft today. Interesting. It seems like something that's probably relevant today.
Well, I mean, witchcraft, Wicca is really on the rise for
Yeah.
sure, and rightly so, because it's just getting back to that essence of the secret knowledge of stuff, that there is this secret knowledge.
Yeah.
Now, are there misuses of it, or there's always where's the con?
Yeah, and I think it's probably directly combating how we're getting away from like homeopathy and naturopathy in medicine. I feel like that's been such a huge thing.
Right. Well, and that's where the psychos like Kennedy
Mm-hmm.
comes into play too, and manipulating and just So here's a book on con men. I have many books on con stuff like that, and I would put this stuff out there, and sometimes I'd have people coming in turning over stuff, and sometimes it was legitimate neo-fascists
You know,
who just
there's one at every
know,
party.
yeah, and it's so sad how it actually works.
Yeah.
How fascism works,
Mm.
and I'm gonna tell you because it's really it shouldn't be secret knowledge, but it seems to be so. First of all, fascism is always there, and it's everywhere, always. In the cave, there was a motherfucker in the cave who was a fascist, who hated the guy outside, who
Mm-hmm.
knew things intuitively. Why don't I know things intuitively? Because you're not practicing it, and you don't trust yourself. It comes down to the power thing that I was talking about,
Yeah.
where we have powers that some people don't like seeing because they feel they don't have it. They feel so bad about themselves that they don't understand their own powers. So they use physical force, they use powers of money, and they use other types of weapons because they don't think that they could actually do it without the money.
Yeah.
And it's a shame because everyone has these powers. If you just work at it, yeah, you have to work at it. You have to do a lot of reading. You have to do things that are action oriented. I mean, that was the thing that Ingo Swann saw. He was like, "You're an action oriented person, yet you're reading all the time, and you're utilizing the knowledge of what you're reading to become part of your everyday regular life.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was just obvious. And then what did he care? He saw something in me, and he saw a way for me to be a recruiter. And the thing about being a recruiter is that I didn't say come to a meeting, or I didn't have to say anything. I just had to look at a person, have a conversation with them, and then all of a sudden they would come over to my American Student Travel Center and say the coded words that I was telling you about, that I'm asking people to figure out.
Mm-hmm.
And they would say the word, and then I would, and it was just a matter of like, oh, you might want to read this book or that book. It was never like anyone ever spoke to me and said they are now a remote viewer, or they're working for the company, or CIA, or they understand that there are powers within the CIA that are against the positive powers, or that that they understood what was going on with Russia. They would just it was just it was all intuitive.
Mm-hmm.
They were the wind that I wasn't afraid of. They were not the lion hiding in the bushes, and I just knew it. It's not really secret knowledge, except that nothing is said, and it's all intuitive.
Okay. So my question to you,
Yeah.
we've been talking about remote viewing, and you're saying that you know it's something that we all have access to.
Yeah.
Um,
The links are there,
and the links
and
are
there
there.
doesn't cost you anything to practice it.
Okay. So if you had like just the initial startup point, like where do people have to be mentally, or where should they be mentally, and is there like an initial like first thing they should try, to
They need to be well read.
well read. Okay.
That's why education is being downplayed now so hard.
Yeah.
Education is being downplayed for a specific reason, because when you are not well read, you're going to believe all kinds of things that are fearful. You're going to believe
Yeah.
that there is Antifa. You're going to believe that there's communists. You're going to believe there's no fucking communists in this anywhere in the world. I'm
Mm-hmm.
telling you, Marx and Engels would not be communists now. It doesn't work, and they would say it doesn't really. We're going to figure something else now. Now, Larry, give me something esoteric to read, because that's intuition is the way to go. I think the weird and places like, I would say, go to weird studies. I would say go to Jungian psychology. Jungian psychology is part of weird studies. I can give lists of people who, when you read them, they're not trying to make you do anything.
Mm-hmm.
They're not making you want to do anything. You know what the answer is? They're going to all tell you.
What's that?
Keep fucking asking questions. They're all going to say that. Anyone who gives you answers is fucked. Don't fucking pay attention to them.
Mm-hmm.
Don't pay attention to me on answers that I said. Don't listen to me. Don't do it. No. Just keep asking questions. It's really that simple.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I gotta. I want to do a couple of things. This is
please go for it.
This is a cover that I made for. I like to make my own covers. This is for Phil Ford's book on Dig, which is a book on bohemians and stuff. And I think I told you last time that a lot of my writing professors were people like John Teitel, who wrote the Beat Generation book, and Marie Ponceau is a beat poet. Those are all my notes and scribbles, and it's all about bohemian and how it began. It's an amazing, fantastic book. And if you think about what jazz is, it's a secret language that was created to communicate amongst people themselves.
Yeah.
To communicate ideas and with the use of music, and music has been instrumental in that. Like there's Mumbo Jumbo by Ishmael Reed.
I don't
Do you
know.
know? Oh, it's fantastic.
Is it a song?
No, he's well. People have made songs about Ishmael Reed, but it's a book not unlike in some ways The Crying of Lot 49 by Thomas Pynchon, and he's an important writer. Uh, and if you notice, everything that I'm providing is pretty much literature, not factually based stories. The more real, anyway. And mumbo jumbo is great because it's about a virus
Mm.
that the government wants to stop because it makes people happy.
Interesting.
Fuck yeah.
That's
And
yeah.
and if you think about it, everything that I am talking about here today, all these are about making us happy and
Yeah.
enjoy life and be able to deal with the consequences of the traumas that we're going to experience and the future and our inevitable deaths
Mm-hmm.
and not be so concerned about that. And that's why even in the new age of cosmic horrors, there's a future 2 million years from now, and nobody is concerned that there's no sun. Nobody has an agenda politically. Nobody has it. They're just going to live their lives, and when there's a thin line around the pyramid that protects them from the monsters, but the monsters are going to get through. Monsters are inevitably going to get through. No one is concerned about that. They've accepted this because they also have a knowledge that there was a past. They had a past. They still are connected to it.
Mm-hmm.
There's the present and whatever that future is cosmologically, it'll happen. And within the book in Nightlands, all the monsters, I don't know if all of them were, but there are people who become monsters.
Yeah.
And they actually have in the book there's a suicide pill if you think that a monster is going to eat you and take your soul.
Mm-hmm.
Soul munchers, let's call them. You eat the pill so that you don't become a monster.
Hmm.
Death is better than becoming a monster. And death is better than becoming one of these fucking monsters that we live with on a daily basis now.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
And do you have any? I mean, that's pretty much the story. I mean,
Yeah.
I there was an abduction of me by the penetrators, but I was helped by there's also in there's a song. Maybe you want to play it. Beatniks from Outer Space.
Yeah. I was thinking, if we get the chance to do this again, yeah, maybe we could have, um, dedicate some solid time to these two warring civilizations.
Yeah, I mean, let's
Because that's
see.
something that
First, let's get it out there. Let's put this out there for people to fact check and see the CIA documentation and see how much
yeah,
they want to pay attention or not pay
yeah,
attention. It doesn't matter to me really. All I care about is like you don't have to be tied to that little tree.
mm-hmm.
You're a fucking monster of human beings. You have incredible powers and wealth doesn't come from the money alone. It's not a bad thing to have money. It's
Yeah,
not. I'll take a swimming pool. I could use a massage.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
not. Nobody is talking about that. But if your only thoughts and thinking is that money is the answer,
mm-hmm.
you've been tied to the tree. You're tied to the tree, and you're tied to the idea that other people are out there to eat you instead of paying attention that sometimes it's just the wind and the fucking birds are singing. You don't got nothing to worry about right now. Be
Yeah,
prepared. Have a weapon if you want one. You might need one.
yeah, yeah. We're all victims to the 24-hour global news cycle.
And I think the bigger reveal is going to happen now.
Okay.
And one is that Ralph Nader will probably be the next president of the United States.
Ralph Nader? I mean, it says it, so it must be true. Is he Ralph Nader still alive?
Yeah, he is actually. He still has a podcast. And here's the thing that I listen to David Feldman.
Yeah.
I'll have a link for it. I listen to Weird Studies. I'm part of the Weirdo Sphere.
Okay.
I'm part of the Jungian, This Jungian Life. Those are three podcasts that I pretty much listen to on a regular basis with everything else that I do and listen to, and for those and here's the thing. Here's a reveal that I want to give. This whole story of penetrators and stuff, and even though you can fact check it, it is a prank. You've been pranked.
It's all a prank.
It's all a prank. Hey, happy April Fools, everyone. But it's all real, too. It's realer than real. The pranks can be realer than real, and that's kind of what we're here for. So go over everything. If you took everything, I'm hoping for people to have been there with papers and pens, or maybe they'll go back now. What's real, what's not real. This fact checks. Wait a second, Ingo Swann is real. There are remote viewers. It's all real. The Penetration is a book by Ingo Swann. He talks about the aliens. Larry Fisher is in the book. He talks about Larry Fisher in the book briefly. These are the things that are there, but
yeah,
maybe it's all a prank.
I fucking hope so.
Have a good night, everybody. Love
See
you
guys
all.
Later till we meet again. Remote viewers.
Remote viewers, contact me. You know how to get to me.
Hey.
You don't need a phone.